Welcome to the final season 2023 edition of the Stat Connect podcast. We are excited to be back. I'm excited to be back. I missed everybody. I really missed my co-host here. We got Matt Patton, Dustin Birch with me. We're here to talk a little stats. We got a bowl game. Utah got a bowl game. That doesn't come as news as they won their sixth game pretty early in the season, but still exciting. Still a little bit more college football before the long, dark time where there isn't any that we have to all face down. But I'm excited. I'm always up for a bowl game. It's always a good time. It's a good reward for the student athletes, even if maybe not the bowl game that folks were hoping early in the season when the team was looking good. We're hoping to get some quarterbacks back. Broadly, I mean, what are your not game specifics, but what are your thoughts? I mean, I think the news is the transfer portal and the draft. There's a lot of talent changes maybe that we didn't expect. I think a little bit more movement and some talent that I was pretty confident Utah would be getting back next year, that Utah's not going to get back next year. So what do you two guys think about those prospects, and do you think they're going to have an impact on the game in a couple weeks here?
I mean, obviously it'll have some impact. It's a lot of depth. I think the count right now is 5 that have declared early for the NFL draft and 14 in the transfer portal. Of those 14, you got about maybe 2 or 3 guys that would have had significant minutes. But the Utes have other guys that can fill in just fine. I thought a funny thing, Miles Battle on Twitter, somebody had put in there, here's the guys that are going to be gone for the bowl game. And Battle was included in there. And then he texted and said, I'm not gone yet. I've still got a game. So Battle's definitely planning to play. But I kind of look at this as a game that Utah's got to look at and say, hey, we need to get a win. There's been enough bowl game losses the last few years. This is a good matchup against a Northwestern team that doesn't have a good offense, which Utah does very well against teams with a struggling offense. So I think right here, Utah's just got to look at it and say, let's get a win. Let's get back in the win column for the bowl games.
See it the same
way? Yeah, I think the question is going to be, right, of the early entries, are they all sitting the game out, which is sort of expected, but we don't know for sure. The only one of the transfer portal players who we're expecting to play is Barnes. He explicitly said he was going to play, and Whittingham's last press conference, it sounded like we may actually get to see Brandon Rose, but that Barnes is also who they are expecting to play. And so, because I know Whittingham's sort of general position has been, once you've decided you're no longer on the team, you're no longer on the team. That you don't get to hang around and play the bowl game and then leave after that. But it sounds like that's not true for Barnes. He's okay with Barnes playing in the Vegas Bowl. But so that leaves a defensive backfield with a little bit of concerns. Luckily, Northwestern's terrible on offense. and not great on defense either, but their offense is just awful.
My feeling is if Utah could put 11 players on the field on defense, Northwestern is going to have trouble scoring. This team is right. I looked at this when I sort of looked at the matchup and saw it. I was like, oh, we're going to get one of those, defensive powerhouse games where very few points are scored. And then I started to look at the stats, and Utah's not having a great offensive season. 66th in run efficiency, 97th, close to 100th in pass efficiency. Those are bad. They give up a lot of sacks. They give up a lot of tackles for loss. But Northwestern is just this completely different level.
This will be the worst statistical offense Utah has seen in almost every category. They're the worst total offense of all FBS opponents. They're the worst, the second worst rushing offense, ahead of only Colorado of all FBS opponents. They're the worst passing offense of all of Utah's FBS opponents, and they're the second worst scoring offense of all of Utah's FBS opponents, ahead of only Arizona State, who I picked probably we could have shut out, and Utah would have shut them out had they not given up a big punt return. So This offense is very, very, very bad at everything. And while Utah's offense has been sort of subpar, right, mid 80s, almost all of Northwestern's opponents are worse than 60 in offense. I went through it. The total offense of Northwestern's opponents, Rutgers is 120th, UTEP's 80th, Duke is 94th, Minnesota is 122nd. Penn State is the second best offense they've faced. They're 59th.
So you're saying their defense might also not be that good based on those numbers?
Well, the thing is their defense numbers are not great. They're better than their offensive numbers, but the defensive numbers are not great. And the Big Ten opponents that they have faced, plus Duke, plus UTEP, are also terrible offenses. And so Northwestern just is not a very good team. Statistically, Utah should be able to run the ball. Utah should be able to throw the ball okay. Northwestern tries to throw the ball. That's what they're slightly better at than running, but they're still not good. 96th in the country. They're bad at everything. And so, and they give up a lot of sacks. This is the second worst offensive line Utah will face, because outside of Colorado, who gives up almost 5 sacks a game, Northwestern gives up 4 sacks a game. And they throw the ball a lot less than Colorado does.
Yeah, Utah should definitely get some pressure. Yeah, and you know, I don't know. Okay, bowl games are just weird. They always are. Whenever I do a bull pick 'em, I get so frustrated because you get guys that sit that you don't expect. You get Mekhi Bernard playing, defensive back. So bowl games are weird. You never know what's going to happen. And I look at this and I say, Northwestern has a lot of seniors. I'm working up my my Northwestern preview, kind of scouting them out, and there's seniors all over that roster, including their quarterback. So I look at that a little bit different from the Arizona State game, where you have a quarterback playing in possibly his last game of his football career. And you got guys that are really going to want to ball out for Northwestern. And Utah, on the other hand, they got 19 guys off the roster now. That's a lot of depth. You'll have some guys wanting to step up, but I think this game's going to be a little bit closer than maybe you guys are the feeling I'm getting from you. I don't think it'll be quite the cakewalk, although I do feel like with that whole pressure situation, Utah does really well against those weak offensive lines. But I look at some of those intangibles, and it gives me a slight amount of concern.
I think you're on to something there, the sort of want to win aspect, and whether or not, it's sort of a does Utah get off the bus situation, but they might not get off the bus for this game. This is an underwhelming opponent and an underwhelming bowl for a team that, justified or not, had much bigger aspirations halfway through the season than where they've wound up. We may have a drop in here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and Northwestern also, they're not losing anybody. They've got one starting offensive lineman who's in the transfer portal. So presumably he's gone, but he's a starting left guard, I think. Other than that, the only transfer portal guys they have are backups who haven't played at all this year or very little this year. And they are losing no one currently to the NFL early. So it's a lot of players who you would expect to be playing, unless some of them decide, and none of them have announced this, but unless some of them decide they're sitting out to prepare for the NFL, some of those many, many seniors decide they're sitting out to prepare for the NFL. This probably will be very similar to the Northwestern that has played all year. However, the Northwestern that has played all year, Utah can beat them with the Colorado game plan. They're not very good. And they're 7-5, but they are quite literally 20 points away from 3-9. Some of those games were very close, including a 3-point win over Howard. I don't know what Howard is, but they only beat one dude named Howard by 3 points.
I do look at recency bias. I do have a little bit of recency bias, and Northwestern has won 4 of their last 5. Things were kind of weird at the beginning of the season for them with their coach getting let go basically on those hazing allegations. So their last 5 games, four wins, and also their turnover situation. They're very good at forcing turnovers, and they take care of the ball. They only had 1 fumble, which Utah did as well. So that's good for Utah. but they also didn't throw a whole lot of interceptions, which is surprising when you're getting sacked, over 50 times, which I believe their quarterback, something like 52, 53 times, so right around Shadir Sanders' numbers, but he only fumbled it once. So to me, that's really impressive.
Hey,
So
hold on. I go away for 1 week and suddenly Matt is the doom and gloom.
I know.
What happened? What happened? I thought I was going to
Matt's still going to pick a 15-point win. He's just not expecting the blowout.
I wouldn't quite call it doom and gloom, but
let's do scores. Let me pull up my things. I agree. My numbers. It's a bowl game, a lot of transition and talent. I actually bumped up my statistical uncertainty, so the standard deviation is higher for this score chart. So
there's a lot more uncertainty.
The graph out than what I normally do. But the thing that I come back to when I look at the numbers is really just one. Northwestern is 126th in run efficiency in yards per carry. And they are 74th in yards per carry allowed, which means that what Utah wants to do, especially in this circumstance, I mean, these numbers having to do with just the ability of Utah to run and stop the run. That's what Utah is going to want to do. There's absolutely no reason to think anything else is going to happen in this game. I think it's going to be 60-40, 70-30 runs for the Utes, and they're just gonna steamroll this football team. There are these kind of variables, but that's not what I trade in. I just trade in what's happened on the field. Northwestern hasn't scored points against good defenses. They haven't stopped good offenses from scoring. I don't see this as two defensive juggernauts going up against each other. I see this as a flawed but very good Utah team going up against a really pretty bad, I mean, one of the worst bowl eligible teams that there is to play. And I think Utah's just gonna roll. I love that -7 line for the Utes. It's always risky to bet on a bowl game, but I think it's a really, really attractive line. I think just by the numbers, Utah's 14 to 16 points better. It's really a home game for the Utes. The sort of mathematical analysis is the closer you are to the stadium geographically by miles, the more home field advantage you get. So even aside from the fact that Utah fans are going to show up for this game and Northwestern fans aren't, there's a lot of reasons to give them 2.5 to 3 points for that. And then the other number I like on this is the under. It's a 42.5 under set in Vegas right now. And I don't think either of these teams are going to find the end zone very often. My final score, just kind of a laugher, really. I think 24-6. I don't think Northwestern is going to score a touchdown. I think provided Utah gets off the bus, they're gonna waltz.
I think I mean, I know I pointed out several things that give me some concern, and so I am going to give Northwestern a little bit more credit still. But I think I'm going to go with a score of Utah 31. No, that's too high. Utah 27-13.
Yeah, like I said, Northwestern is worse than Arizona State on offense. They're worse than Arizona State. And Utah should have shut out Arizona State. And yeah, that's at home. And yes, that's with the whole team playing. But I don't think Utah's drop off, despite losing a ton of great talent, including NFL talent on the defense, I don't think Utah's drop-off in the areas that matter when facing Northwestern are going to be so high that it's not going to be similar. So I actually think Utah probably scores a little bit more. I still would bet the under if I had to, and Utah to cover, but I think probably 28-6.
Yeah, I'm right. You're right. This isn't the kind of game where, you really need to have Broughton there because there's some first or second round wide receiver who somebody's got to man up to. It's just a meat and potatoes defense is going to work. And we're talking about Kyle Whittingham, and he's got an excellent meat and potatoes defense, first string, second string, all the way down. I just don't worry too much about the loss of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think the Utes are going to want for explosiveness. On offense, I just don't think it'll matter with their ability to run between the tackles.
Yeah, I will say, I think Utah loses this game if it's at all like the last time they played Northwestern and they fumbled the ball 4 times.
Well, sure, but that's an easy prediction to make.
That's an easy prediction to make. But yeah, but I don't think that's likely because yes, Northwestern has forced a good number of turnovers. They're about 40th nationally in forcing turnovers, and they're in the top 10 in not giving the ball away. But Utah also doesn't give the ball away. Utah has 9 on the year. I mean, Utah's done a pretty good job. And, Kyle has talked about he's expecting Jackson to be finally, for the first time since Oregon State, fully healthy. If that's true, Jackson might have 200. I mean,
dynamic football player. And if he's not
really fun to watch
the line, he's going to have a lot of long runs. That could be really, really fun. Now you're making me want to bump my Ute score up. But I think that we're all about on the same page. I think we're expecting a fun game. I think it's one Ute fans are going to want to tune in for. See some of these seniors out. See Bryson Barnes out. I mean, I did not have all nice things to say, but man, what a warrior way to show up and give everything he had every single day. And I'm excited to see where he lands. And some of these other transfers too feel like they really gave everything they had to the program while they were here. And we'll wish everybody all the best, especially those guys going to the NFL. I mean, that's an exciting opportunity for them. And couldn't ask
what you want out of your team.
For sure. All right, gentlemen. Well, I hope you have a happy holiday and have happiness when we all watch this football game and see the Utes come away with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Same
Thanks,
thing.
Dustin.
Merry Christmas, guys.